the doctor said, "I hate this part of my job." She said, "There's a lot of things about my job I love, but this is the part that I hate." And she said, "Your son has cancer, and we need to get him over to radiation right now, or it's going to be too late."
That was the moment our whole world came crashing down. It's the worst words I've ever heard in my life.
And Paul asked her how long we have with him. And she says probably close to 9 months, but if you're lucky, a year. And I remember saying, "But he's just a baby, like he's only 5. And I stood up and I said, "Okay, let's get him to radiation right now." And she says, "You need to understand, 100% of children don't survive this kind of cancer, and we have no options for you. There's nothing we can do. We'll do radiation, 30 rounds, to buy you some time, but that's all we can offer you."
We talked very quickly, decided, this might be his diagnosis, but this isn't his prognosis. They can say 100% of kids don't survive this, but it's never 100%. There's always got to be a first to survive anything. And we decided we weren't giving up, that Kayge is not a statistic. That our son is not a number, and that we would fight this with him.
We do Sunday dinners at my parents' house, and I was pushing Kayge on a seesaw that they have in their backyard. And I had called my mom over and I said, "Do you notice that his mouth looks a little bit different?" I said, "That doesn't look right." And so the one side of his mouth was drooping. And even when he smiled and laughed, it just looked off. So I brought him to the emergency room that night, and the doctor told me he had Bell's palsy. He gave us a steroid to put him on and sent us home.
Well, the biggest thing about Kayge has always been his smile and his laugh. So he had this smile that would it lit up my entire world. So all of a sudden his smile was gone.
It was progressively getting worse every day, and so a couple of days later I brought him back into the walk-in clinic at the group health.
After several doctor's visits, all saying Bell's palsy, and Mandy was already in mama bear mode. She was already pushing doctors hard.
If he has Bell's palsy, that's fine, just prove it to me. If it's viral, show me he has a viral infection. Show me something to indicate that this is what it is, because everything I'm reading online, I know I don't want to be Dr. Google, but everything I'm reading online, this is a really big deal. I'm like, everything is pointing to cancer. And he kept saying, "Don't worry, your son doesn't have cancer. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and if this was the case with her, I would be doing the same thing I'm doing for your son." And then he gave me statistics on how my son would get cancer if I forced him to scan him. So I left.
And then Mandy got a call from the school.
She called me and she said, he's having a hard time with his balance, and he's, even when we have him sitting on the chair, he can't seem to keep himself upright. Maybe you should come and pick him up from school. So I called Paul and I asked him to go and pick him up.
So I left work immediately, picked him up from school and rushed him to Emerge.
So then Paul messaged me and he said, "They're about to take him in for an MRI. You need to get up here."
Finally, we're going to get to the bottom of this, but that's when the fear started to set in.
I remember sitting there outside the room and I said to Paul, I'm like, what if they actually find something?
They gave him general anesthetic, made sure he was sleeping, gave him the MRI. So we were sitting in the MRI waiting room, terrified.
Everything just happened really fast after that.
The doctor and a couple nurses walked in the door and closed the door right away. The doctor had tears in her eyes and looked at us and said, I wish I had better news.
And she told us that he had a brain tumor and that she had already spoken to sick kids and they're expecting us and they're gonna fly us out tonight.
They could only fit one parent in the plane, so I flew down ahead, the first flight I could get.
It was probably the longest flight of my life. And I remember texting my mom when we landed and I said that we are about to go to a hospital and somebody's gonna tell me if my kid's gonna live or die.
Because I saw the Lamborghini on one of my gargants. Yeah. And it had enough.
The only thing the doctors here had to offer us was 30 rounds of radiation over the next 6 weeks in Toronto. That should shrink the tumor enough that he gets a break from his symptoms and call it a honeymoon period. He should feel a little bit better, go home and make memories.
Well, we didn't even know what his diagnosis was. We just knew he had a brain tumor and that it was cancerous and terminal. They never actually told us what it was. We found out from like a nurse in radiology at Princess Margaret, and she said it was called diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, DIPG for short. And that was all that we knew, so Paul started Googling. His
Positivity through everything is nothing short of a miracle. His laughter. He's not once complained about not being able to walk anymore. He went from fully functioning 5-year-old being able to run and jump and play to almost completely paralyzed, and he hasn't complained. So I'm learning a lot from my son.
Paul's constantly calling doctors in Germany, in the States, in Mexico, like all over the world, talking to them all the time, trying to figure out what the next best thing is, because there isn't any options. Or at least you're told in Canada there's no options.
And we found some long-term survivors. Not a lot, but some. So where no hope was given, we found some hope.
Are those for Daddy?
He made a chart. Every child he found talked to their parents, what worked for them, what didn't, what had side effects, what didn't, what age they were when they were diagnosed, what age they were when they passed away, and tried to figure out what would keep them alive the longest.
This one yellow one right here. Right here? Do you want to do it? You want Sissy to do it?
And so a lot of families, they do the 30 rounds of radiation, they go home and wait. And everybody has the right to make whatever decision they think is best for their child. I mean, there's no wrong decision in this situation. You are flying at the seat of your pants and you don't know what to do. Paul's presented us with a lot of opportunities, and we talk over them, which ones we think are good and which ones we don't. Hopefully we don't ever pass up a good one.
Good job.
Nice. Well, that was a good high five. So after going through every little thing I could find, we finally decided on Mexico. So we go every 28 days. Basically, he has a treatment. The cheapest way we've found to do it is to drive to Detroit, fly from Detroit direct to Monterrey, Mexico. We're typically there for 5 days. It's called intra-arterial chemotherapy. But it's very low because they're introducing it directly to the tumor site. It's very low dosages as opposed to systemic chemotherapy. So Kayge doesn't have the side effects of major nausea, hair loss, and all the things that are miserable about chemotherapy.
I know a lot of people have been very skeptical about us going there, and believe me, we were too. But we had spoken to hundreds of families before we made the decision to go to Mexico, and we had a lot of families that had lost their children and still said that they would never change it for anything because it gave them more time and it gave their kids better quality of life.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Oh my goodness.
Happy birthday to you.
I don't regret any decisions that we've made so far for his treatments. We're always looking for new things because Mexico isn't a cure.
Hello, my name is David Fowler, and I am doing a lemon cap challenge for Kayge Fowler.
We're here at the Marconi. We hope to see everybody here at 6 o'clock.
Lemon challenge for the research of DIPG cancer research.
$3,284.85.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the whole family. We love you very much. Love you, Kayge.
Every month I am doing whatever it takes to make sure we have enough money for Kayge to get his next treatment.
We look at the amount of money that we get and we call it, we got enough for a third of a treatment or half a treatment or a quarter of a treatment or whatever the case may be.
I held his hand last night. He walked with me from one part of the church to another. And that was a blessing. And so I remember just walking with them, holding hands, just things that you probably take for granted with your kids and with your grandkids. We don't take those for granted anymore.
It's crazy the amount of people gathering around this family and helping them any way they can.
Without community, without support, I literally don't know, and I'm really scared to think of what it would be like to go down this road without the support that we have.
You tell people that you're thankful, but you can't express in words how you feel. Like they will never know how grateful we are.
I say thank you to people all the time, but they're never really going to understand the extent of what it actually means that they're doing for us. Like, you're literally keeping my son alive. Like, how do you thank somebody for that?
Although right now our main focus is on Kayge, in the future we really want to be able to help other families that are struggling with DIPG.
You know, everything that Kayge has really wanted to do, for the most part, we've been able to do for him. We've met families that, you know, their kids just wanted to be able to go and see a beach or see snow, and they haven't been able to fulfill those for them. You know, it's hard enough going through this, but to go through it and feel like you didn't grant their one last wish, you know, like, I couldn't imagine living with that. Being able to help other families in a lot of different ways is something that we're really hopeful for.
We're also working on setting up a charity for Kayge. Actually, it's been submitted, so we're just waiting for the government, for CRA, to approve it.
I'm really hopeful that that we're going to be able to do a lot of good with it, research-wise, you know, awareness, helping other families, and it's going to be called Kayge Fighters Against DIPG.
We pray for our miracle every day, and we believe in miracles, and Kayge is doing really well right now, and regardless of what happens, he's already a miracle.
Mandy, Paul, I just wanted to let you know how much I admire your strength, your courageousness, your selflessness through this nightmare. And I wanted to let you know that while you're over there fighting, we're here praying for a miracle.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
Can't wait to see you.
Don't wait to see you.
No, I can't wait to see you.
I mean, I can't wait to see you.
Hi, Mandy, Paul. We love you. Miss you. Kayge, we love you.
Kayge, we want you to know how special you are and the great impact that you've had on all of our lives.
Kayge is a very special friend.
We will all fight for you because no child should meet the monster called DIPG. We pray for your strength, and we want you to know that your St. Basil family will always have your back. Keep fighting, little superhero saint.
Mandy and Paul, you're where you need to be. Don't worry. We got this.
Pretty soon I'm going to have all gray hair like Papa.
I just want to let you know how much I love you and how proud I am of you as well. And Kayge Bear, Mimi loves you to the moon and back a gazillion times.
Love you guys so very, very much and so incredibly proud of you. Please know we're praying for you constantly and we'll always be there for you, always.
Kayge, buddy, you're our hero. Mandy and Paul, you guys are super strong. We love you and miss you. And hurry home.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you. We love you, Kayge.